رحمة للعالمين مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض أرواحنا له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma sallam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل.
Respected elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it's my sincere duas in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts from us all our small efforts, our broken and inconsistent efforts in Aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada. May He reward you all and us all for our tears, our matam, our nohas, our marsiyas, everything that we have done, the small things we have done. May He accept them into His bargah, and may we be given the shafa'at of Janab Fatima salamullahi alayha inshallah on these things. I also want to thank the community over there in Singapore for being so supportive, so flexible, so understanding, so welcoming, so patient with these days. These are not easy days. There's a lot of things that need to be done. And although we are separated by the distance of space, we are together in terms of our wilaya for Ahlul Bayt and our love for Amirul Mu'mineen and the children of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhimus salam. Tonight, this lecture is going to be our final lecture, and this is going to be in 3 parts. Number 1, I will speak for a time and just finish off and conclude our series. We are going to discuss a little bit more about Nafs Mutma'inna and then touch upon the last 2 parts of the soul, the last 2 stages of the soul, and that will finish our series. Then we will have some time for Q&A. Q&A, I guess we will go on the chat option. So if you have any questions, I can see 1 question already come in. Inshallah, we will tackle that. If you have any questions, please put them on the chat. We'll go through them. If I miss anything, then I will ask, for example, Brother Abbas Kazmi, please remind me, point it out to me in case I miss it, so then we can deal with all the questions. And then we will finish with the Masa'ib of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam today. So we were discussing Nafs Mutma'inna. After Nafs Mulhama, we reach Nafs Mutma'inna. And Mutma'inna, as I said, it refers to that state of insan in which he is extremely tranquil and peaceful. Nothing can faze him now. Everything, he's understood realities, he's become consistent, and he's reached an incredibly good, wonderful, high level. And that is called Nafs Mutma'inna. Okay, and as we said, 2 things are very, very important in Nafs Mutma'inna: sabr and shukr. This is one of the reasons, brothers and sisters, and I hope you are all listening very carefully, because we have some fine details today which I want to touch upon. This is the reason why we never support any spiritual movement or any spiritual effort that is not grounded in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People will say, no, why? We have people, they're very good people, they are spiritual people, they are nice people, they do good things, they are so-called better than believers and God-fearing people because they do things for other people. I'm sorry, I don't agree. I don't agree that that is the right way of analyzing these things. Just to do things for people and be a nice person and be a humanitarian person is not enough. We have Haqqullah, we have Haqqun Nas. Haqqullah has to be strong, Haqqun Nas has to be strong. So we can never support and give our undivided support to these kinds of movements which say we are spiritual but we are not religious, or we find it better to be a good person generally than to be a religious person. No, no one is saying don't do both. A true mu'min, a true Muslim does both. He does service to humanity, he does service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when someone is generally a good person or is spiritual without being religious, can they experience any kind of spirituality? Can their souls benefit from this? Of course, yes. But the thing is, what we will say is, you are only scratching the surface. Your soul is there. You can train your soul without being a Muslim to a certain extent, but you are only scratching the surface. You will never go to the depths of the soul, the true ethics of the soul, the true progress of the soul, the true development of the soul, without Ahlul Bayt and without the grounding in which Allah has set up the framework of Islam. When you follow Islam properly, when you follow Ahlul Bayt properly, then you can start going from surface level into the depths. And you'll find this in every single field that there is. The Islamic understanding will be much more accurate, pure, and deep. In Quran, we have this verse. This is a wonderful verse to bear in mind about this. This is when the queen of Saba or Sheba, when she eventually accepts the belief that Nabi Sulaiman was preaching, what does she say? قالت, she said, Rabbi inni zalamtu nafsi. My Lord, definitely I had been doing zulm on myself. I've been doing injustice on myself. Wa aslamtu, but now I'm submitting ma'a Sulaiman. Lillahi Rabbil Alameen. With Sulaiman, for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Ma'a in Arabic means with. This ma'a, this with is very important. We have to ask that when someone is spiritual or good or humanitarian, based on what? Based on what framework? Based on what worldview? Based on what philosophy? Based on what belief system? So this with is very important. Who introduced you to God? Who introduced you to all this good work? Who has been giving you the foundations of all of this? This is very, very critical. So when we say that people are spiritual but not religious, we cannot accept. We say the depth of Ahlul Bayt is immense, cannot be measured. The depth of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is immense and cannot be measured. He knew God deeply. If I want to know God deeply, I need to go onto the path of Abu Abdullah. I cannot just come up with my own system and say, well, I do this and I do that, so I think I'm better than the so-called religious people. This is not acceptable. We really should not be having this kind of opinion and attitude. This is a very shallow level of understanding of religion. So once khulus is established, and we've discussed khulus to a good detail, once the khulus and sincerity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is established in a person, nafs mutma'inna kicks in, then we begin to really enjoy the pleasurable, ecstatic experiences of being linked with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And slowly, slowly, the veils are lifted. Veils are those things which we have either constructed ourselves with our own vices, or we lack a capacity to perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me give an example. For example, the sun. The sun is not veiled. The sun is not veiled at all. It is the most amazing thing in the sky. It's a ball of fire which exists in the vacuum of space, giving heat and light. But I'll ask you, when it's a cloudy day, can you see the sun? Or even through the Earth's atmosphere? Can you see the sun properly? Can you see it in all its glory? You cannot. So these are veils that veil us from the true brilliance of the sun. So that's one level of veils. These are called the dark veils, the dhulmani veils. These are veils which come between us and Allah due to our own sins: greed, selfishness, jealousy, pride, arrogance, hatred, grudge. All of these different things are veils upon us which shield us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I say, okay, remove all the veils. You work on each veil, you remove it. You remove greed, you remove jealousy, you remove shahwat, you remove desire, you remove passion, you remove worldliness. You remove all the veils. Now I ask you, if you take away the Earth's atmosphere, the clouds and everything, can you look at the sun? Still you cannot look at the sun, even though there's no veils. Why? Because the sun is too brilliant. It will burn your cornea. You cannot look at it for more than a few seconds. Otherwise, you'll have serious issues with your eyes. So now we've removed all the veils, but still we can't look at the sun. Why? Because our eye is defective. Our eye has limited capacity. Our eye cannot perceive the sun as it should be perceived because our eye is limited. These are another group of veils called the Nurani veils, the veils of light. These are not vices and evils, these are our own lack of capacity. So in Nafs Mutma'inna, we work on both of these. Yeah? Before Nafs Mutma'inna and during Nafs Mutma'inna, we work on both of these. We remove our Zulmani veils and we increase our capacity. So we remove even the Nurani veils. Both of these veils need to go, and then we can perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to an extent that befits a human being. Still, we can never perceive him properly because he is limitless and we cannot fathom him. He's fathomless. He's unfathomable, but we can, to a certain extent, know him better than we did before. Now we come on to an important discussion. What if things go wrong? What if things in this journey of ours in spirituality, what if one day we say, I'm going to recite all my prayers on time, but then a day comes and you fail to pray. You make one namaz qaza. You fail to pray on time. You say, I'm going to keep myself in wudu now from now on all the time. But one day it's not possible. You break your wudu, you cannot renew it. You say, I'm going to recite namaz shab, but one day your eyes don't open, your alarm clock doesn't wake you up. So you miss namaz shab for a day. So is that going to do what to you? Well, it's definitely going to demotivate you. It's going to set you back. It's going to affect your spirituality. You'll have to start again. You have the intention in your mind to do things for 40 days. Now, one day has been missed. So now again, you start again, 40 days, and you have to count again. Imagine someone gets to 38 days or 39 days and they miss one. That's going to be very painful, isn't it? But this is the beauty of our religion, that it has thought about these things from beforehand. And it gives us a lot of solutions to how to get over these problems of slight inconsistencies. What happens is that the first thing, we have a stage-wise approach to this. We have three things that I wanted to mention. The first thing is, whenever you unfortunately mess up, you do something you shouldn't do, you fail to go 40 days, for example, first thing is, always bear in mind, Allah is Rahman and Rahim. Never lose your hope on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can lose hope on every other thing. Lose your hope on people, lose your hope on yourself. That's okay. When you lose hope in Allah, I would say then really you are out of the equation. You cannot sufficiently come back, because losing hope in Allah is one of the biggest sins. So always remember, Allah is Rahman and Rahim. He is merciful. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of the day, He makes it as difficult as possible for us to enter hell. He makes it as easy as possible for us to gain spirituality and enter heaven. There's a man you may have heard of, Hassan al-Basri. He's very much respected in the Sunni school of thought. Let me tell you about Hassan al-Basri. Hassan al-Basri was a man, he was known for his zuhud. Zuhud means simplicity in living. And he was one of the leaders of the Urafa, the spiritual, mystical people of that time. His view was a view of fear. He was a good speaker. He was a powerful communicator. His classes were very popular. One day, one of the students of Hassan al-Basri comes to Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, and he was looking very scared. Imam says to him, "What is wrong? Why do you look so scared?" He said, "I go to the lessons of Hassan al-Basri." And I feel like what he says is, he says, ليس العجب, don't be surprised, من يدخل النار, if people enter heaven. Don't be surprised if people enter hell. من يدخل النار, don't be surprised. كيف يدخل النار, that how are so many people going to hell? Don't be surprised, you'll see many people going to hell. He said, when I heard these words, I become very fearful. I've lost my hope. Look how many people are going to hell. Look how many sinners we have. You see sins all around you. How many bad things are happening. How many wrong thoughts we have. How many incorrect beliefs we have. Look at all of the people who don't subscribe to Islam. Hell, hell, hell for everybody. He said, this is why I look worried. Imam said, okay, this is his view. But what I say, ليس العجب من يدخل الجنة كيف يدخل الجنة. I don't have this level of despondency and lack of hope. Yes, definitely, hell is a reality. People are going to go to hell. But I don't look at it that way. I say, do not be surprised that when people enter heaven, how they enter heaven. He says, Allah will make it so easy for people to enter heaven. You have to be really very much neglectful and very rebellious to enter hell. Okay? I'm not giving anyone false hope. I'm still saying be precautious, be careful, have fear of God, everything. But at the end of the day, when you mess up, there's always Allah you can turn back to. Hope is not lost. Why is that? Because He's so merciful. After all the opportunity in this world, the istighfar, the prayers, the love of Ahlul Bayt, the mercy of Allah, the shafa'at of Ma'soomeen, keep your hope always in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will never leave you alone. The other thing is that let's say you don't get to 40 days. This is number 2. Let's say you don't get to 40 days. Your efforts have not been wasted. Although 40 days is the brilliant number that we want to bear in mind, if you do 10 days, 5 days, 3 days, 1 day, it's not been wasted. It is still having an effect on the soul. It is still having an impact upon the soul. Never feel, oh, I didn't get to 40 days, so it's not good enough. No, you, inshallah, will reach 40 days at another opportunity. But what you have done is not wasted. It still had an impact on your soul, but it wasn't that magic number of 40 to truly embed it in the soul. But it's not wasted at all. Thirdly, as I said in one of the earliest lectures this year, brothers and sisters, do not be distracted by your side issues and tangential issues. Be occupied with the depth of understanding that Islam gives. Sometimes we have the audacity to challenge Allah in everything, challenge Islam in everything. I'm not talking about genuine questions. I'm not talking about genuine inquiries. But sometimes even when we answer the inquiries, even when we give all the daleel and all the proofs behind something, still people will not accept. And they'll say, no, but, no, but. This endless questioning, this endless kind of insistence of getting the answer that you want, this is wrong. This Islam does not support. This is not a slave of God. This is not a servant of Allah. This is not someone who we can do much with. At the end of the day, we can only give so many arguments and so many convincing things. We cannot force people to accept. Questioning and answering is one thing. Acceptance is then on the individual. Whether they accept or not, this is something very, very up to them. Usually, it is because people want to hear what they want to hear. So they will keep asking, they will ask in different ways, arguing about something until they get the answer they want. We don't support that. We cannot do that. We can give the answers which we have, which are from Ahlul Bayt, Aimma, alayhimus salam, Quran, Allah, intellect. But at the end of the day, the acceptance is on the individual. So this brings us to our next practical tip. Let me just put it on the chat first of all, and then I will explain what I mean. I believe this is our 9th practical tip. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Recite, if you want to see an illumination of the soul, if you want to see real illumination of the soul, recite the musabbihat surahs every night before you sleep. Which are these surahs? Why are they called musabbihat? These are the surahs, either they begin with sabbaha lillah or yusabbihu lillah. And the consensus is that these are 5 surahs. Hadid, Hashr, Saf, Juma, Taghabun. 5 surahs. Some people, they add one more. They add Suratul A'la. Okay, there's not a consensus on that. 5 are consensus. The 6th Suratul A'la is not consensus, but because it's a short-ish surah, they add that as well. So if you can recite these 6 surahs, Hadid, Hashr, Saf, Juma, Taghabun, A'la. Why? Because these begin with the glorification of God. These begin with the tasbih of Allah. Tasbih of Allah, glorification of Allah is very important. It is one of the fundamental things in our religion that we glorify and we do the tasbih of the Almighty. So you recite these every night, inshallah. You will find a lot of improvement in the nuraniyat of the soul, the illumination of the soul. And inshallah, this is also one of the prophetic practices that he used to perform. Why did he perform these? For what reason? Could it be for thawab? Well, of course, all these things have thawab, but that's not the main reason. Because we have said already that the true mukhlisin, the true servants of Allah, they don't do things for sawab and gunah. They don't do things because of that necessarily. They are above that. He would recite for insights and new horizons of understanding and for opening the heart. Very important. You have a big heart. The bigger the heart, the more illumination and more inspiration you can receive. So this is nafs mutma'inna. And then we will now touch upon the last 2 stages. The last 2 stages are mentioned in Surah Al-Fajr. One is Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbik. We've dealt with that nafs mutma'inna. Radiyatan. This is also a stage of the soul. Nafs radiya. Nafs radiya is now even above nafs mutma'inna. Nafs radiya is what? It's when you experience extreme love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You might say, well, you already mentioned that before, but what I'm trying to say is there's no end. This is now an even bigger, amazing, more fantastic, more tremendous level of love of God. And it is characterized by 2 things especially, Ridha and Taslim. What is Ridha? Can someone answer this question? When we say Ridha and Taslim, what do we mean by these words? What do we mean by these terms? In ethics of Islam, in Islamic akhlaq, what do we mean by Ridha and Taslim? Ridha and Taslim. Because now we have moved into a new level. We are talking about Radhiya. So Ridha and Radhiya, they're from the same root. What is meant by Ridha and Taslim? We are running out of time. If you can quickly put your understanding, I would appreciate. Contentment, satisfaction. Narjis Rashid, contentment. Shanaz Hassan, satisfaction. Taslim means to accept the will of Allah. Ridha, agreement and acceptance. Navishta Haider. Ridha, very, very important. Ridha. It's when you are pleased from the bottom of your heart, truly pleased, truly happy for what is happening. Now imagine, someone can be truly happy about poverty. Someone can be truly happy about the state they are in. Their family members have just died. They can be truly happy. Yes, is the short answer. You can be. Because when you see everything that happens around you, everything that happens to you, when you see that there is a grand plan behind this, you can be happy. Because now you have entered into a very high level of spirituality. You can expect lots of tests and trials. Why? Allah loves you now so much. He will throw so many things at you to purify you even further, to make you even more sincere, to make you even more detached from everything and reliant upon Him. Now there's no, even in this level of nafs, there's not even a question of passing the test or not. The lover actually wants to feel difficulty. He wants the test. He wants to show how amazing he can submit to his Lord. So the tests and trials are actually happy for him. Of course, they require lots of sacrifices, but all of these sacrifices are for the true beloved. And the will of the servant now joins with the will of the Lord. If my Lord is happy to give me this, I am happy. Once there was a conversation between the great companion of Rasulullah, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, and the fifth Imam. They had a conversation in which the Imam said to Jabir, "Tell me, what do you prefer? Poverty or wealth? Sickness or health?" He asked him, "What do you prefer?" Now Jabir, his understanding was, well, the more difficulty I have, it's better. So he replied, "I prefer poverty to wealth. I prefer sickness to health." Imam said, "Okay, that's your view, but our view, Ahlul Bayt's view, is whatever Allah chooses for us, we are happy with that. If He chooses wealth is better than poverty, Alhamdulillah. Poverty is better than wealth, Alhamdulillah. Sickness is better than health, Alhamdulillah. Health is better than sickness, Alhamdulillah." We basically don't have any will anymore. Our will is Allah's will. Allah decides, we are happy with that. We have abandoned all sense of self. This is, let me stress, this is for the higher levels. I'm not saying that people in the beginning of this journey can have this. It's very difficult. But as you progress, you'll see that it becomes easier to adopt this kind of attitude. So all self-will is absolved and complete devotion of God is achieved. And the experiences which this stage of soul will experience will tell him or her that Allah is happy with him, radiyah. And taslim, along the same lines, taslim is submission. We submit entirely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we do not submit at all to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Islam in a beautiful way. We submit entirely to the will of Allah. We do not submit to anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ahlul Bayt and prophets come under Allah. So when we're talking about Allah, we mean Ahlul Bayt, prophets, etc. That is Allah. But other than Allah, sorry, we don't have any submission towards those things. Unless they are in the line of what Allah has said and what He has taught, then we don't mind. But absolute submission to any other thing, any other world order, any other way of thinking, any other philosophy, any other religion, sorry, not for us. What is that beautiful? There's a wonderful recitation by one of the Persian reciters. He says, "Az mantike ma wajeh taslim hazf shud." That means we are the followers of Imam Hussein. From our vocabulary, the concept of submitting to any worldly thing has been erased. Sorry, we don't have this word in our vocabulary anymore. It's a beautiful poem. If you want it, let me know. I can post it here. It's a rajaz. That means it's a war chant based on what Iran is going through now and all of the pressures upon Iran and how it frames it in this rajas. This wonderful poet has done this. It's remarkable. After nafs radiyah, what do we have? Radiyatan mardiyah. We have the final stage, the seventh stage, the amazing stage of mardiyah. This now you're talking about the upmost level. This is where we have reached true human potential. Now we are sure that Allah is happy with us. And we experience the true love from Allah. And this is the highest level. We don't have much information in depth about nafs maradiyah, but it is basically when you are totally consumed, even your self, you don't see as yourself anymore. You see yourself just as an instrument of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because you have purified yourself, you are manifesting what? You're not manifesting yourself anymore. You are manifesting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His attributes, in His kindness, in His justice, in His wisdom, in His knowledge, in His ability to forgive, in His Rahmaniyya, in His Rahimiyya. All of these things are manifested in you. This is nafs maradiyya, the final stage. There's a wonderful quote which I would like to end with. One of the mystics says, "For years and years, I searched for Allah. For years and years, I searched for Allah, but at the end, what I realized is that actually He was the one searching for me." He wants us to get close to Him. He wants us to embrace Him. He wants us to find our potential in this world so that we can truly be true servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, manifest His attributes, be the best people we can be, with all of the religious understanding. I'm going to come back to that again and again. With all of the religious boundaries, rules, regulations, and understanding. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. I think on this point, I will conclude, I will finish. Thank you very much for listening to these discourses. I hope they have been beneficial. I hope I've managed to put some thoughts in your minds to get you thinking, reflecting, pondering, maybe doing some of the actions. I've tried to give as many practical tips as possible as we go along the way. And inshallah, remember me in your prayers, and may we one day meet in person. And inshallah, we can have more discussions in the future. I will now wait for any questions to come on the chat. If I've missed anything, just let me know. There's one question which I wanted to touch upon. Before that, can I ask you all to recite Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's one question which was asked a couple of nights ago regarding mukhlasin. Are these the ones being spoken about in hadith of Qurbe Nawafil? Qurbe Nawafil is one of the outstanding ahadith that we have regarding spirituality, regarding how a person can get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through following the mustahab actions. Are they the same mukhlasin being spoken about in hadith of Qurbun Nawafil? I'll have to look properly and look at the text of that Arabic, but most likely yes, because mukhlas, there's no doubt that when we say mukhlas with fatah, it is that person who has been purified top to bottom. It's that person who's not that their actions are sincere, but their entire being is sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'd have to look at it in more depth if you don't mind, but you can basically take these Quranic concepts and apply them to the ahadith as well. Brother Iqbal, Jazakallah khair for all the wonderful and thought-provoking lectures. You're most welcome. May Allah reward you for this. In Ameen, a humble question needs your help to get some clarity. While making transition from one to another level of nafs, what should be done to avoid and save oneself from the attacks of shaitan? As you have mentioned in one of your lectures, the transitioning will trigger shaitan and he will double or multiply his efforts to derail one. Yes, absolutely, Brother Iqbal. You are absolutely correct. The attacks will increase. However, your resistance will also increase. So your defense system will get better. Your defense mechanism will improve. When your defense improves, the attacks of shaitan are less likely to disrupt you. However, yes, it's possible that it can happen. So that's why in the earlier lectures we talked about azm and sabr. At the end of the day, how do you stop any temptation? How do you prevent yourself from any bad thing? Okay, right now there's a temptation towards going to a particular sin. How do you stop that? You bring in your mind, maybe, I'm just giving some examples. You bring in your mind, no, I'm a Muslim. I shouldn't do that. On top of that, I'm a Shia. I definitely shouldn't do that. Allah is watching me. I'll have to account for it. Imam Zamana is watching me. I'll have to account to him. Bibi Fatima is watching me. I better be careful. I heard this in a lecture. I shouldn't do it. If I do this and someone finds out, what will they think of me? I shouldn't do it. Would I be happy for my children to do this? I shouldn't do it. Any mechanism you go through, you'll have to have some self-control and self-resilience to come out of that and reduce that temptation. Now, every single thing, every different kind of temptation has its own ilaj and its own cure. The dawa and the medicine for each thing is slightly different. But as a whole, as a general concept, determination and sabr is required for you to build your defense. Then it doesn't matter how many shaitans come, you'll be able to defend yourself against everything. Build your sabr and your azm, your determination. When you build that, nothing will affect you because you'll be too strong. You'll be like a wall. Nothing can get past you, inshallah. I hope I've answered your question. But if there's something specific, then let me know. We still have time, brothers and sisters. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Brother Iqbal. Okay, Rafiq, what would be your advice to a student who prefers to be silent and alone and research Islam for as long as it takes, forever even, and spend all the time and efforts to really know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So very interesting question. I want to say a couple of things about this. To be silent and alone is not a problem. But at the same time, to neglect other duties is a problem. So I prefer silence and solitude. But at the same time, I have to raise my kids. I have to put food on the table. I have to work. Allah has given me these duties as well. So I cannot only be doing one and neglect the other. I need to fulfill all of my responsibilities. But definitely, when you have discharged responsibilities and you have dealt with all the other issues that you are charged to do, then yes, spend time alone, reflect. Silence is the cornerstone of spirituality, is silence. The first thing Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam says in Khutbatul Muttaqeen is regarding speech. Mantikuhumus sawab. Silence is incredibly important. Solitude, it can be very beneficial to you. Research is very good. So this is the first point. And spend all the time and efforts to really know Allah. Well, like I said, as much as possible, we have to all spend time to get to know Allah whilst discharging our other duties. Allah would not like someone to neglect other things and just concentrate on one area. No, our Imams, they worked, they worshipped, they helped, they volunteered, they received guests, they went to other people's houses. They did everything that a normal person does, however, always with the intention of focusing upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But yes, there's no problem. You reduce some of your attachments and worldly things. You don't have to go everywhere. You don't have to mix with everyone. You don't have to do everything that people do. Do what is required. Don't neglect your wajibat and focus upon your ma'rifat of Allah and spirituality. No problem. It's one of the best things you can do, inshallah. Anything else, brothers and sisters? Kumel, besides your practical tips, any tips we can implement to increase our patience and determination? I would say, look, without making it very complicated, number one, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase your patience and determination. At the end of the day, He will give us our patience and determination. Number two, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always have the remembrance that He is watching you, He is accounting you, He is observing you, He's recording your deeds. Always have that in your mind, and inshallah, your patience and determination will increase. With that, brothers and sisters, I think let's call this to an end. We remember now the sacrifice and the masa'ib of Bimar Karbala, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. How were the bodies of Ahlul Bayt buried? This is a question because they were taken in chains, they were taken away, no one was left behind, the women were shackled, the men, the last surviving male, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, was shackled, they were beaten, they were taken on the camels, and they were taken towards Kufa. It is said that for a number of days, the body of Abu Abdullah and the other martyrs of Karbala lay on the sands of Karbala. And only an Imam can bury another Imam. So it was with the ijaz of Imamat, the miracle of Imamat of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, that people thought he was shackled and chained in Kufa, in the prisons, but somehow Allah made it happen in his Imamat that unbeknown to anyone, he was somehow able to come to Karbala. He came to Karbala. He saw the men of Bani Asad were hesitant to bury the bodies because they felt, what if someone sees us, or what if someone reports us, or what if some of Umar Saad's forces are still around, lurking around, and they see that we are burying these people? We will be in trouble. Imam draws near. The men of Bani Asad look at Imam. Imam says, you have not yet buried the dead of Karbala. They say, we wish to bury them, but we don't know how to bury them because the bodies do not have their heads. Who is who, where to bury, how to bury, we are confused. Imam says, let me help you. In Karbala, you will see a unique way of burying people. And this is based on the azmat of those people. Imam says, first of all, we dig a very large grave. He instructed them, dig a very large grave. Most of the shuhada were placed in this grave. Today, when you go to Karbala, in the haram of Imam Hussein, we have one area called Ganje Shuhada. Ganje Shuhada. Ganj means treasure trove, meaning it's a lovely title for this grave. The grave of the Shuhada is known as Ganje Shuhada. That's where most of the martyrs are buried. Then Imam says, now we must dig a separate grave. They said, who is this for? He said, this is for the friend of my father. This is for Habib. Habib was very beloved to Imam Hussein. Habib gets a separate burial. They bury Habib separately. Then Imam says, now I will go to bury someone that only I and the few people that I want with me, only we will bury this person. When Imam Sajjad alayhi salam reaches this body in the center of Karbala, first of all, Imam begins to bend down and pick certain things off the floor. They say, O Zainul Abidin, what do you pick from the floor? He says, this body is the body of my father. And what I am picking from the floor are the parts of his body, the fingers from his hands. When they wanted to steal the rings from his fingers, the ring was not coming off. They resorted to chopping off the entire finger. I'm picking up these different parts of the body of my father. He buries Abu Abdullah, Hazrat Ali Asghar, Hazrat Ali Asghar. And then Imam begins to walk towards Furat. They say, now what? Where do you go? He says, there is still one more body to bury. And when he reaches Furat, he looks at the body. He starts to pick it up. When he picks it up from one side, the other side falls down. When he picks it up from the other side falls down. He looks at the sky. What does he cry? He says, Ya Qamar Bani Hashim, Ya Abul Fadl al-Abbas, Matame Hussein.
Ya Hussein,